Okay, I'm going to call the Capital Improvement Planning Committee meeting to order for um, Monday, December 18th, 2023. It is 7:31 p.m. Let's start with the 12/11 meeting minutes, and we'll go right to the schools. So, any comments or questions for Jeff?
Um, I had I had one or two under library feasibility study article.
Mhm.
The second sentence, um, it was an overview of funding.
Oh, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, no worries. Little potatoes.
Is that it, Joe?
Yeah. Other than that, I thought I could live with it. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Jeff, you just need to change your template. You got the our old community name at the top. Was my
Oh,
comment.
Oh,
thank you.
But other than that, all good. So thank you for the quick turnaround.
No problem. I will fix that right now.
Okay. All right. I will move that we accept the minutes as edited. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Jeff,
Aye.
Joe,
aye.
Tony,
Aye.
and I am I as well. All right, let's go move on to our guests, and I'll come back to member chair updates after this.
Hmm.
Good evening, Greg, Keith, Becky.
Good evening.
So I lied, Greg. I think I should give the Neary Building Committee update while you're all here, given you all are ex officio. So, just real quick, tomorrow, a subsection of the Neary Building Committee is meeting with the MSBA, where they're interviewing three finalists to be the designer for the project. Our expectation is that we will come out of that meeting with a finalist and a runner-up to begin negotiations with the finalist. Think our internal goal is to have a contract by very early January with whoever the finalist is, or if those negotiations fail, the runner-up. So more news, I guess, after tomorrow. And then just so everyone's aware, there was a community blast to at least people with school-age children. So basically, whoever's on the school mailing list that went out over the weekend. And we will be replicating that this week through the normal other areas in the community, whether it be the town website or the blogs and social media that the town has access to, just to make sure we're giving everyone an update. So, any questions on that? And then I have no further updates on community center exploration other than progress continues to be made towards Finn being a viable option, should and if that become a school that is decommissioned as part of this process. Any questions? All right. So Greg, I'll turn the floor to you, Keith and Becky, if there's any kind of opening comments or anything you want to make. The committee does have copies of your Southborough local capital plan as well as your Algonquin regional. I would just ask that we start with Southborough local first and then go to the region.
Sure. So I'll begin with some opening remarks. First, I want to thank the committee for the opportunity to share the FY25 capital plan priorities and discussion around those priorities the school committee has set. I also just want to acknowledge some successful projects in the town of Southborough in regards to the school district. The paving of the Chartier parking lot. We're in the process of installing a replacement unit on Trottier, so that should take place in a week or so. And also at the regional, the Algonquin Regional High School Athletic Complex project is almost, phase one is 98% complete. So those were very successful projects, and we thank the community for its support. This evening, Assistant Superintendent Keith Lavoie will present the capital plans for the public schools of Southborough and the Northborough Southborough Regional School District and entertain any questions and discussion. And I'll turn it over to Keith.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you for the committee for this opportunity. I also want to thank Brian Fantoni, our facilities manager for Southborough, for his work on the Southborough plan. Last year, we did do a comprehensive review of this plan, went deeper into some of our estimates and certainly some of the prioritization that was required. For FY25, as you will see probably enclosed in your packet, is that for FY25, we are focusing on window unit air conditioning for all 4 of the schools. This was the request of the school committee to make sure that that was considered a priority moving forward. The Finn School did experience some mold mitigation that was required this past fall, and that did bring to light the need for conditioning our environments in all the schools, but as a good stopgap measure before any significant building projects could take place, the window units were considered a priority to get us through the next 3 to 5 years. So as you can see in your packet, we did break it out by school. We received an estimate on what it would take to get this project underway, and it would be something we'd have to procure more completely, but we are confident that the estimates are accurate. I did put together a little summary to kind of pull those out. Jason, would you mind if I share that very quickly just to give everyone a visual representation?
Yeah. Give me 2 seconds. Should be good, Keith.
Thanks. Okay. I believe you should see, yep, I think you do. A short little spreadsheet kind of itemizing the different schools and what it would take. I do want to note that there are some variances from the original capital plan, as this was a evolving document. Most notably at the Finn School, this number of 85,500 includes not only the areas that were directly impacted by the mold mitigation, but also the additional classrooms. So for the 87,500, that would take care of all air-conditioned space at the Finn School. Likewise, for Woodward, it's a very similar size building where the air condition is needed. That would be 82,500. The Neary School is a little unique, as there are a number of window air conditioning units that are already in place at Neary. However, for the remaining classrooms, there would need to be an upgrade in electrical services, which we had upcharged on that to bring us to a just over $55,000 estimate. And then for the Trotter School, being its largest school in the district, that rounds us out at $120,000. So for the complete window unit project, we are looking at a little over $340,000 to complete that for all 4 of the schools. And like I said, these are been air conditioning has been on the list for us for many years, but we wanted to make sure we did see it as a priority for the upcoming fiscal year, if possible. Greg, would you add anything else as far as rounding out that conversation about the window unit install?
No.
And Jason, I'd be happy to answer any specific questions, whether it be about Finn or the other buildings related to this project.
All right. So your request, just to clarify the numbers and how this deviates from your capital plan, you're asking for the 345,500 plus the 47,000, or you want to come to that in a second?
I'll come to that in a second. So that was just for the air conditioning project. Yes, Jason. So the grand total would be at the bottom there, the 392,500.
Okay.
I'll mention the proposal for the power washing and sealant next.
So, and you had originally requested, it looks like 330,000 based on the,
That's correct.
The numbers.
Correct. Yes.
So just for the sake of clarity, Finn went from 45 to 87.5.
That's correct.
The Woodward went from 55 to 82,000.
Mm-hmm.
Neary stayed within $500 of each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then Trotter is still 120K.
That is correct.
but we only went up by 15,000. The math's not adding up to me. So I'm just trying to figure out. I can't see your formulas, but by my math, Finn doubled approximately. So it went up by over 40,000.
Jason, it looks like I'm sorry, Neary might be counted twice in the calculation on the original spreadsheet.
I think you're right, Becky.
Because of it being in and out sort of thing.
Yeah, that's right. It was originally it was not part of it, and then Jason, it was added after the last school committee meeting that we had on the topic, which was back in October.
Okay. Okay. And then before I go to Joe, just to ground us, is it the districts and school committees' intent that this be done all at the same time, or would there be any consideration on phasing?
Good. Greg, do you want to take this?
Sure. I think our main priority is Finn. I think we need to create an ability to control the environment, specifically air conditioning and dehumidification. So the air conditioners that we purchased would also be dehumidifiers at the same time. That would be our first priority, and then Woodward, and then Trottier, second and third, and then Neary would be our fourth priority. I think also just note that we understand that window units aren't the most efficient way to cool our buildings. So Brian Fantoni is also looking into other methods that are more efficient, more energy efficient. So phased in approach would also provide us with more time to do research around potential solutions. However, we don't necessarily have the time at the Finn Elementary School due to the current conditions.
Okay. Thank you. Joe, go ahead.
You mentioned a 3 to 5 year term. Was that when you determine the lifespan of the units you're putting in, or is that a changeover after 3 to 5 years or something else?
That's what we're seeing in some of the other schools where we have those air conditioning units, Joe, is that we are seeing 3 to 5 years where we have to either make a change or we definitely have some additional maintenance that's required. Also, hopefully we will be having, the Neary building project coming online with maybe some other opportunities as well. So as of now, that's kind of the forecast to get us through this next chapter of 3 to 5 years.
And essentially this is a failure of the HVAC systems that are currently in the schools.
Not entirely. Especially at the Finn school, we are getting some moisture into the space that was unintentional. This is dating back a while through the groundwater that's there. We don't know the exact source of why we are getting high levels of humidity at Finn, but I think we all experienced the extreme weather we had this summer and this fall with the rainfall that we did occur, which didn't seem to saturate that area more than it has in the past. I think we've been able to control it relatively well, but this year it was overwhelming.
But we're doing all the schools.
Correct.
The current infrastructure, HVAC infrastructure, doesn't allow for cooling. It's just heat at this point in time. So there are no condensing units. There's no modifications for air conditioning for the heating systems that we have in all of our buildings.
Right. They were designed and made and built without air conditioning systems.
Correct.
That's correct. Yes.
Interesting. And that was the spec from the state plans? Or did we choose that additionally not to do that?
I'm not sure the genesis of Finn and Wood.
That's okay. I haven't been around long enough to know that either.
Yeah.
I thought I'd ask the question.
I mean,
with MSBA updated projects, there is dehumidification and air conditioning or classification of air conditioning that they do put in, but these buildings were before that time.
And so we're doing this because we can't adapt the current systems.
Correct.
Okay. And the cost of adapting these systems would be horrendous. So the easiest ones. Are,
It-
are,
yeah, it would be extreme.
would anything larger windows like this, would the split types be any more efficient or be easier given that you could put one and then carve a couple of cuts in several classrooms?
Yeah, Joe, that's actually part of the work that we are exploring is seeing whether or not we would be a candidate for that type of system. We have inquired about a couple other schools that have done this type of work before, but that's part of the research that's ongoing.
Okay, so these are estimates based upon what will be a final decision not quite yet made.
Yes, I think that's fair to say.
Okay, thank you.
Keith, just to clarify that last question from Joe, this is if you went with standard AC units, you feel comfortable with these costs. However, if you went with a more permanent solution that actually probably is more energy efficient, these costs, who knows whether these are representative or not.
Yeah, correct. And I would imagine that they would escalate quite rapidly just on some basic numbers that we've gotten for some similar types of work we've done. It would be radically higher, but I would hate to even remotely put an estimate on that.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Jeff, with your question.
Thank you. Well, the first question was somewhat covered about maybe not in our purview entirely, but the impact on the operating budget if we were to have all these window units. To your point, they're pretty inefficient or more inefficient than some of the other options out there. So I just want to make sure that was on your radar, which you indicated it is. And then how quick can you get these from a procurement perspective? Because we all know that, I mean, the past couple of years, we've had 90-degree days in April. We've had, days like that. And I've been in those schools those days, and it's pretty tough for
Not
the
pleasant,
kids.
yes.
Yeah. So how quick could this be procured?
Relatively quickly. I think the scope of work is very simple, so we don't need any major engineering to take place or any major design. So I think we could relatively go quickly out through the appropriate procurement method. That's something that Becky and I would collaborate on, but I think it is a very basic scope of work, and we would definitely solicit with vendors we've worked in the past and have an open proposal process for that. So we are pretty confident, and we did hear from the vendor that we have worked with previously that, believe it or not, these units are available. Maybe not tomorrow, but it definitely with a decent turnaround time. And that was in the late summer, early fall when we inquired. So my hope is it's even gotten better since then.
So there's a chance that these could be in the schools this spring.
It is possible, yes.
That is actually our intention, is to have air conditioning for this, those shoulder months where it does get hot. So May, June for this year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions on the concept? I guess one clarifying comment and one question. So I'll start with the question. How long would it take to know if the mini split or the other type systems are going to be viable or not? I.e., let's just say town meetings in favor of this response in this plan, but like, are we rushing it, sort of thing? And I realize there's a delicate balance. And any thoughts around that and any timelines with whoever you're working with has given you? And it may vary by building. So
it does. I think it would require a level of design and engineering at each of the spaces. Obviously, like Greg had mentioned, Finn was our priority. We have explored that with a couple of vendors, but I don't have a timeline towards that, and nothing has come in that is comprehensive or anything I would put any backing behind as of yet. But that is the type of work that could be expedited with a minor investment.
Okay. And then just a clarifying item on this, and we'll talk a little bit about it as we start to take some votes tonight, is I did sit with Mark and Brian earlier this week. It is Monday, last week, to discuss kind of where we're at bigger picture on the capital plan, understanding where the operational budget is. And the town is in a unique situation this year where we have more free cash than we've ever had. And just for those that haven't been through free cash versus appropriation before, typically all the free cash goes back in and is available for allocation. At least that's how it's been done as long as I've been around Southborough. We are thinking about this year allocating certain capital articles. We've talked about this, some of the department heads that have come already that need to be done this spring. So if you actually use free cash, the department heads can go and procure and encumber these expenses. I'll call it the Monday after town meeting, assuming we get done on that Saturday. Versus if we just do this as part of the normal budget, they can't do anything until July 1st, which makes a big difference in terms of the discussion Greg and Jeff just had in terms of timing. So we have tentatively allocated this entire plan to free cash, which would, based on the timing, we'll talk about some other items with other departments as we go through tonight that we have tentatively allocated to free cash. Of course, that's ultimately up to the select board in terms of how they craft the warrant, but it would be part of our recommendation, at least as we approach this, as we move forward. So just keep that in the back of everyone's mind as we talk through this tonight.
And Jason, can I just also provide some context of the air conditioning at Woodward, Neary, and Trotter?
Yeah.
So we did present the mold mitigation efforts at Finn Elementary to the school committee, and part of the recommendation from the consultant was control the air environment, so dehumidification and air conditioning. So we presented that to the school committee, and then they asked us also to look into air conditioning for Woodward, Neary, and Trotter. But our priority was always, again, Finn, because of the current conditions. You know, what makes sense is that we have a plan for conditioning Woodward, Neary, and Trotter, but we do need more time to develop a better plan. I don't necessarily, I think for Finn, it would be installing window units. I think the need to get these installed sooner than later is essential. So again, the priorities Finn, the genesis of the other schools was really an ask. You know, there is a need to condition those other buildings, but the priority is Finn Elementary School.
I think that's incredibly helpful context and somewhat in line with where at least I personally may want to go with some of the motions we make here tonight. Jeff, I see your hand up.
Yeah, sorry, just one more question. This is maybe helpful just from a context perspective. What was, not that I'm against this, just what was the cost to remediate? I don't think I have a full understanding of that.
Yeah, so it was a little, and Becky probably has the exact number, but it was a little over $110,000. We received a $25,000 insurance claim for the mold, but I think it was 87,000 was the total, Becky, around that amount.
Yeah, just
Okay.
about 88,000 after the
And it did
Maya.
not include it did not include other recommendations such as power washing and sealing outside of Finn Elementary School and adding air conditioning.
Great, thank you.
And any drainage work that would be required as well, Greg. So those expenses, Becky, just to be clear, those expenses are to date, correct? Like we're up to speed with that number? Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Okay. Anything else on this topic, Keith? I assume you want to go down into the power washing and sealant, at least for Finn.
Yeah, and we kind of just alluded to it a little bit. This is part of the recommendations that did come from our consultant in the matter, and we did look at the building as a whole and what to do. A lot of things we did do is we took a look at the drains and inspected those right from the top of the roof and going out, and thankfully all of that was working well. You know, the next thing that we saw, though, was that on the exterior of the building, there was just a lot of water. Where that water is coming from and where it goes is a mystery, but it's obviously getting into the building in some way, shape, or form. So that's why there is no number yet for drainage. It's been advised recently that we do some engineering and a deeper inspection of that, but I don't have an estimate of even how much that would cost, never mind the work that would need to be required. What I do know, and this did come from the recommendations of our consultant, is to have the building power washed and sealed, which we did get an estimate for, which was $47,000.
So it's the district's recommendation that if we were just focused on Finn, ignore the other schools for a second, it's really to do the complete project and rely on the expert's opinion it's the 87.5 plus the 47.
That is correct.
Okay. Any other questions on that piece? Go ahead, Joe.
That's power washing the complete exterior and then sealing what?
In sealing the brick, so it is a porous brick exterior. So after the power washing would be completed, a sealant would be applied to lock it in.
And the sealant would deter what? Deterioration of the brick, or is it somehow permeable to some other problem?
It would prevent it from becoming a place where mold can go, or there would be water infiltration. So it would serve two purposes.
Okay. And is that perceived to be part of the problem from before, or is that the consultant adding an idea to us?
No, there were places. So where there was a higher concentration of mold is where we did see some exterior places where there was definitely algae and other mold on the exterior of the building. So it's potentially hand in hand as a result of the consultant's report.
Okay, and so it was remediated inside, and this would be remediating the outside
Correct, Joe. Yes.
I know this is a stupid question, but is there any way to know what's actually inside it?
What's
well, we remediated the inside, but does that mean that it's not that if we're saying that the mortar or the brick surface somehow contaminated itself, did the remediation on the inside, and will power washing the outside take care of that?
It does seem like it's a natural step. It does. So when we're going from the places where it's found and then building its way out, the exterior of the building is certainly a place where things can spawn from. So that was why it was not even just a recommendation. It was a listen, in order to make sure you're doing everything possible and building your way back out, doing the exterior of the building is always something that should be done after you have the level of mold that we did have at the Finn School.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'll just add, Keith, that regardless of mold, it is recommended that, we do seal our masonry buildings, the brick, just from just to prohibit water penetration. It is porous material, as Keith mentioned, and just best practice to get in common practice of sealing our buildings every 5 to 10 years.
So I assume that's going to be on your maintenance plan moving forward and your regular capital plan?
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions on this particular topic? I guess, is there anything FY26 and beyond that you want to discuss other than the obvious NHERE project and in the roof at Trotter?
So the only thing that I would mention, Jason, is that both for the Trotter and Finn School, you'll see a roof replacement in the near future. Thankfully, MSBA is also restarting their accelerated repair program, which the application process will begin in January. And I do intend to submit a statement of interest for both the Trotter roof and the Finn roof in preparation for that opportunity.
And how are odds increased, decreased, or neutralized by the fact that we're obviously in front of them on a large project at NHERE?
Well, coupled with that, Jason, we've also restarted our solar conversation. And there are other opportunities related to infrastructure improvements as long as we're willing to put solar arrays on top of roofs. So one nice thing that was in Governor Healy's last package was a grant opportunity for schools to apply for. And in order for them to get a new roof, which we hope we're a candidate for, we would then commit to doing solar. So between the GreenWorks opportunity, which I just described, and the usual MSBA Accelerated Repair Program, we're hoping for 2 grant opportunities there to help at minimum offset some of the costs related to replacing those roofs. But definitely for the Trotter School being probably the #1 priority, the Finn roof is a close second.
And I imagine by the time we get to that point on Finn, we'll have some clarity on where NHERE is heading and whether Finn will be a school or not for the
That's
foreseeable future.
and that's why I think I put Trotter on top of that list.
Okay.
One of the reasons also, it's been on the capital plan for the longest time. So we definitely have been in need of a roof at the Trotter School for some time.
It's 25 years old at least, right?
That's correct.
The challenge is that the accelerated repair program is a very competitive program. Many districts submit statements of interest for roofs and windows. That the more statements of interest they receive, the criteria to enter into the program, for example, age of roof, also increases. So the last time we submitted a statement of interest for the Trotter, the criteria actually to be considered, the age of the roof needed to be 30 years old. So it's something we will submit and seek an opportunity. However, I'm not optimistic that we'll be invited in due to the age of the roof. It is a relatively new roof in MSBA's classification. So I think the area where we are excited about is the grants for solar and really taking advantage of that. And the other consideration that we have to investigate really is there's really two roof projects that are highlighted on the capital plan for Trotter. That is a 2,500 or 2.5 million and a 1.5 million. We also need to get some clarity around, does it make sense to do it all at once instead of trying to phase it in? I think that the roof needs to be replaced. One portion doesn't need to be replaced more than the other. So it's something that we're looking into as well.
Okay. Any other questions on the local capital plan before we shift to the regional? All right. Keith, I don't know if there's anyone that you want to share, but I think we just need to align on one thing before you go into any details on anything. Just so everyone's aware, we get a regional assessment every year. It's fully loaded, right? So the regional school committee has they have different autonomies, right? In authorizations that they can work through, as we kind of saw with the Algonquin Gongplex last year, and the decision to actually bring that as a separate article. We don't usually have separate capital articles related to the region within our article. It has happened, but it's rare. Usually they're standalone or they're just part of the Algonquin budget that we get a proportion of. So anything we talk about for FY25 that the regional school committee has voted on, is that part of your budget recommendations already that you've submitted as part of your operational budget to Mark and Brian for vetting there? And then we just need to validate the capital nature of it? Or is this going to be incremental and expected to be carried in our capital articles at town meeting?
So the regional school committee is meeting on Wednesday to discuss whether they're going to approve some capital projects. Our plan is to move it forward as an assessment to each community, and then each community would decide how it pays the assessment. And we can talk about strategy of the regional school committee this evening and what the committee's thinking in terms of mapping it out and making it sustainable for each of the communities.
Okay. I think that'd be important because just for your background, we're dealing with $3 million in appropriations right now at the local level, and we usually are dealing with about a 1. So that's appropriation, not bonded articles. Then we got a few other bonded articles. So we just need to make sure we understand where every penny's coming from and have a holistic picture as we approach this with Select Board Advisory.
So I'll just share a little bit about the strategy. So Algonquin Regional High School is the largest facility on the town side of Northborough and Southborough. It's 350,000 square feet. I think over the past 10 years, there really haven't been any capital projects completed at Algonquin, with the exception of the Algonquin Athletic Complex project that's underway. So the school committee is really looking for a strategy to invest in Algonquin consistently over the next 5 to 10 years without also burdening the two communities of Northborough and Southborough. So what the school committee was trying to attempt to do was to let the assessment for the renovation project fall off its books, which will happen in 27, 28. Becky, can you confirm that? I think it's FY 28.
It's FY 27, I think, is the last year of the payment. Yes.
We then took a look at all of the capital projects that are being recommended, and we really developed a 5-year plan to accomplish those capital projects that are itemized on the capital plan. What we're predicting is that approximately a $400,000 investment over the next 5 years will accomplish many of the projects on that plan. So what the school committee is asking us to do is identify $400,000 worth of capital projects that we are recommending for fiscal year 25. So then of that $400,000, Northborough's portion of the $400,000 would be 40% or therefore close to it. So we're recommending $391,000 of capital projects, and Keith can outline what those are. And then we can share what Southborough's portion would be and what Northborough's portion would be.
All right, great. Yeah, so Jason, I'm probably going to do something similar than I did last time. I did take the plan that you guys have in your packets, and Greg and I made just some slight adjustments to make it a little more visually appealing. So I'm going to share that now. But none of the items have changed. Their values haven't changed. We just did some color coding to make it a little more easy to understand. So I'm going to pull that up now. Okay. So as Greg mentioned, as part of our last conversation around this at the regional level, we were asked to come up with roughly a $400,000 priority list, and what projects would that include? As you can see here, I have identified those in green. It's a different color green than what you probably see in your packet. But it would take care of our top 3 priorities, as well as number 5 and number 7. And honestly, depending on the conversation that we have, omitting or putting number 4 and number 6 a little farther down on the list, when we're getting to that part of the list, are all things that are priorities. So the list that we have here in green, I would certainly consider a top 5 priority list for Algonquin as far as its capital projects are concerned. The top being the redundant hot water system at Algonquin. We are on a single boiler and holding tank at Algonquin for our domestic hot water. What we'd like to do is not only replace that tank and boiler, but add an additional tank to get us that redundancy that we need. And our latest estimates for that project are $215,000. However, we would have to go through a full procurement process for that. So I could see that potentially price increasing once we went forward. The second priority is for our number 1 boiler. We do have a redundant boiler system for the heating system at Algonquin, but for boiler number 1, it does need a new blower motor and Victaulic fittings, which are showing some age as well as some leaking. So tighten that up, and to get us full for our number 1 boiler would be approximately $51,000. Also, just because we have experienced some leaks in our heating system over the years, the concentration of glycol has reduced below where we'd like it to be. So to bring that back to a level that would bring us that antifreezing level where we would want it would be about $25,000. And then for number 5 on the list, and the 4th priority for us, the lighting controls. Right now, the software is outdated and not updatable. Oh, bing, what do you know? Some hidden fields popped up. So that would bring us to a $35,000 update to get us up to speed on that, and would provide our facilities director with more control. And the last priority on the list, this happened in the spring of 22. Our rooftop unit number 10 that services the guidance suite at Algonquin, the cooling side of that system did fail. So to restore that to be 100%, it would be a replacement of a unit, which we are estimating to be $65,000. So my math is correct on that. I just double checked it. The grand total of those 5 priorities, once summed up, would be $391,000 as through the estimates we have received so far. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about, the one thing I didn't mention is similar to Southborough, our Algonquin is supported by our Director of Facilities, Mike Gorman. He does keep quite a comprehensive list, not only of capital, but of our maintenance needs, and does keep a very strong deferred list that you can see has been highlighted in pink here. But our focus is on those ones highlighted in green as a top 5 priority list. But thanks to Mike for all his efforts in maintaining not only Algonquin, but these plans. So we do have a clear picture of what we need.
And I'll just add that Southborough's portion of the 391,000 would be $156,400.
And is that included in anything you've given Brian and Mark at this point, or would that be incremental?
That'd be incremental.
Okay. I'm going to ask, hopefully this is an easy question just to start, and it's really on 2 items you haven't included in your 391. I know you probably don't get questions like this too often, but number 6 seems like one of those items that the quicker you do it, the quicker you realize the benefits of it. So just, I realize you're trying to thread a delicate needle here, balancing the needs of 2 communities that are obviously facing budgetary challenges, but is there a reason why that wouldn't be added in or prioritized differently?
Well, I think when we were looking at this list, you know, right, like you said, tough decisions have to be made when it comes to that. We have seen that lighting system upgrades have been very effective in the past for us. However, you know, it's not yielding as much as we potentially could get for some other savings. Like what I see is when we're getting down into the lighting system control, that's for the entire building. So I really see that as something that would generate that type of savings and efficiency that we'd like to gain. Otherwise, we are on just one set fixed schedule. And Mike does a nice job of managing it, but that would just give us some more ability. So overall, when I'm thinking of it, Jason, I do see the annual savings there, but I do say that the other ones in green would just be that much more of a priority.
Okay.
I can,
would you
Jason,
have to?
I can add too that many of these energy saving programs are the district is charged a cost to implement, and that cost is amortized over a 10-year period or a 15-year period. And it's the cost of the program is usually it's paid for by the savings, electricity savings. So we are saving money, but not as much. And then in the outward years, once we pay off the quote unquote loan, then that's where we're seeing the savings. So there are ways we can accomplish this without impacting assessments for the communities.
And would you have to use green communities from Northborough for this, or you can't because it's a regional building?
We've done a number of these projects, so we're very familiar with these types of projects. Because we are its own entity. We're not part of a green community, and it's very complex. So, you know, Mike Gorman has worked with Becky on some of these projects, and again, it's, you know, we're able to implement them with no cost to each of the towns, slight energy savings, and then once the loan is paid off, we see significant savings.
Okay. Point 2, I don't need a response tonight, but something I would like to have a discussion of at a future point in time is HVAC. The numbers seem very light, and I'd like to see potentially a broader plan, just given what we just heard on the Southborough side, of how do you create a sustainable HVAC system there, and especially because the region is its own entity. That may be something you could think about from an accelerated repair project too. Again, other than a head nod, I'm totally fine with that answer tonight. I don't expect that, but I do think you can and should be a little more aggressive in that area. And then my other point would just be row 20 on the cameras. I just in the age we live in, if you need something for the security of the school, you should be asking for it and let the voters tell you no. I wouldn't shy away from that, especially looking at that number. And I realize there's grants out there, and kudos to you. I believe Northborough, Southborough, and Algonquin all got the grants, and there are only 40 districts in the state that got them, and we essentially were three of those 40. So I know you're doing everything you can, but just as a parent, and I don't have kids in that school for a while, that just seems like a no-brainer to add in and let people tell you no. I wouldn't shy away from it. So I'll just leave those are my comments, open it to others.
I would say if Mike Gorman's listening, he's going to be thrilled with your comments about the HVAC system, Jason. So I think that's going to be a very worthy project for us to do some more exploration on, and something that Mike and I have had conversations about related to HVAC.
One general comment with the MSBA. So they're also piloting other heating sources like geothermal, for example, and creating projects, proof of concepts. So as we look out to 3 to 5 years, there'll be other options other than forced hot air fueled by natural gas or oil. So that is something we're keeping a close eye on, and excited that MSBA is heading in that direction.
Comments from others? Okay. So it sounds like we need on the regional side, we need the regional school committee to take action first, and then we'll react to their recommendation. I think it'd be premature for us to take a motion tonight, but we probably need to at least placeholder our 391 times our allocable proportion in the budget somehow. So Brian was here. Mark, did you and Brian switch roles? Brian was here, but we'll take it back to Brian to make sure he at least has a placeholder, and then we can always adjust and react based on committee's reactions. Before we let Greg, Keith, and Becky go, how do everyone feel about taking motions on the school items tonight? See Jeff with a thumbs up. Tony, you ready? Joe, you ready? In case you want to stay and listen to the motions, that way you know where you're at least with Southborough. I'm going to take this in phases just because I don't know where people stand. I am going to move that capital support the full short-term remediation program at Finn for both the AC and the window in the sealant process that was outlined by Keith, and we have the exact numbers from the presentations. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay. For purpose of discussion and allocations, this would be out of free cash. And that would be our recommendation to select board and advisory. Is there any discussion or comments on that? All right, let's do a roll call vote on that. Jeff?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I am aye. So that's unanimous. Let's go to Woodward next. And Keith, just remind us of the cost because I don't have your screenshot.
Sure, Jason. So for the Woodward School, we're estimating the window unit installation to be $82,500 for Woodward.
Okay. Here's going to be my motion. I'll explain it. I'm going to move that capital support a placeholder for this for the time being out of free cash. However, we direct the district to go back and get estimates of a permanent solution prior to town meeting. Is there a second on that?
Second.
My main rationale on that is this is a 20-year-old building. It's not going anywhere from our school population, and I just don't want to make a short-term decision that we could maybe be making a long-term decision on. I don't know what the costing is, and Keith may come back with a huge number that's just we can't afford it. But I'd like to allow them some time to do it while leaving the option open for the time being.
I've got a question though. If we were to do that, how would that impact your ability to procure those for the spring if we had to go out and get an estimate on a more permanent solution?
A
And you're
prelim-
not going to have it in the spring, right? That would not be in the spring.
Right. It would require, I believe, a level of engineering and investigation of current, because each of the classrooms at the Woodward School has its own independent unit ventilator. It's not necessarily connected to duct work that goes in between classrooms and so forth. So to do a retro of that, you're either replacing the unit ventilator itself, or you're creating a duct system that would then share a split. That would be a deeper investigation, and Woodward may or may not be a candidate for that. That's a type of exploration that would be required. We have seen it done at other schools with varying results, so that just requires a greater level of inquiry.
Yep.
And there's a placeholder for it. It just allows us to have a comparison when someone gets up on town meeting floor and asks the question.
That's fair.
All right. Any further discussion on that one?
Yeah, let me just make sure I understand that, Jason. So you're asking them to go off and before town meeting, answer the question if there's a better solution.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think you can answer that question in that time period?
Well, there is a better solution than window units.
That's right.
I don't think it's necessarily reasonable for us to, well, we can get estimates, but it's a much larger scale project than window units. I think, I don't want to speak for Keith or Becky, but we're not even talking in the same, we're talking about millions of dollars, not, $100,000. This is a larger scale project.
Yeah, I have to admit that would have been my guess that
That was my guess too. But
putting a window unit is going to be a tenth of the cost of.
I mean, I think that, again, I don't want to, we need a year, a full year. I'm thinking the spring town meeting of 25 for us to really investigate and prepare and put a proposal in front of this committee, school committee, and the select board to make a decision.
So do you think it's rushed to go for window units on Woodward this spring?
Yeah, I think there's immediate. I think we need a year, and correct Keith or Becky if you disagree, a year to do all the design and engineering and really get a good sense of what it will cost.
I would agree with that.
Is there a risk we could have the same issue at Finn and have to spend $150,000 to remediate?
I think
the same. We spent $150,000 at Finn, and we have to spend that at Woodward if we decide to kick this can down the road and not put AC units in.
That is not predicted. The environment is very different at Woodward School for things like that. Even just its elevation alone would make it not a candidate for what we experienced at Finn. Also, the level of stuff that we're doing now to be ahead of it is certainly gonna be in our favor. So I don't anticipate that happening at Woodward, Jeff.
Okay,
and to your point, I think you made it earlier about energy efficiency. Like you mentioned, window units are not necessarily the best for that. So that's certainly going to be part of the conversation when we're looking at engineering for something more comprehensive.
Thank you.
How much are we talking about for engineering plans to develop something different than the window concept here? Where's the money going to come from? Any guesses?
I think that's a larger part of the larger conversation that we need to have. Again, I think if we are looking at long-term solutions for heating and cooling efficiently in our buildings, we're going to need more time to really think about those types of questions.
All right. I just want to see us send you off on a mission,
Yeah.
Of no return.
Right.
Because, if you're going to need money to do studies and come up with, the better solutions, I don't know that I'm not sure we're using your time that effectively. Not that I don't agree with Jason's premise that, I'd like to know what the better options are, but if you can't really come back with a, really sort of firm idea of what that is and a general cost figure, I don't know if that's going to accomplish what we would all like, I think.
So I'm going to withdraw my motion and I'm going to put a new one on the table. For purposes of the Woodward and Trotter schools, I'm going to recommend that we defer the window AC FY25 capital expense, and that we encourage the district to continue exploration of more permanent solutions given the age of these structures, and also that we allocate $50,000 from free cash to be available to deal with immediate window AC needs at either school and or any engineering or due diligence required to bring a permanent solution to town meeting. There's a second.
Second.
I think you understand the rationale behind that, but also if they end up needing zero of it, just comes back in and can be returned to free cash. We're not appropriating anything from taxpayers, but it also gives us a fail-safe, right? They didn't have a fail-safe this year when they had the Finn thing, so there was no money there available to deal with. Leave the remediation off to the side, but even getting window AC units, dehumidifiers, whatever was needed just to continue use of the structure. So that's the rationale behind my motion. So open it to discussion and/or a vote.
Was your motion was for Woodward and the others?
Woodward and Trotter. I think we need to take a separate vote on Neary.
Woodward and Trotter. Okay.
Yes. Sorry, excuse me. Keith, would you be comfortable with a $50,000 number for a study if that's what's needed?
I would. I think that does sound reasonable to me. Becky, Greg, do you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
Do you think it's enough? I don't. I'm thinking, Becky, from our other feasibility studies, and this is a pretty significant project. I don't know.
It's to give you a start. It's not the end.
It's a start.
It's a start. We would need a formal estimate to give you the real number.
Yeah.
My goal is to give you some insulation here and to start the process. I realize you may need to come back, and one of our recommendations may be that there has to be a fall town meeting.
What I think is reasonable between now and, I think the next month we can get an estimate and design on, feasibility study.
Yeah. I mean, to Jason's point, you said you weren't going to be ready for this spring, so it makes sense.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? All right, let's take a vote on that motion. Jeff?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. So that's a 4-0 vote. Now we're going to talk about Neary. I heard you say there's some there. We obviously know we're going to be spending a lot of money on something there in the short term. I didn't hear a pressing need, but I just want to make sure I know you were reacting to feedback from the school committee that you report to as well. So hearing where we've gone with Finn, Trotter, and Woodward, any thoughts on Neary at this point?
Well, what I'm thinking of at the Neary school is the window units have actually been pretty successful and controlling some of the conditions. Not perfect by any stretch, but our central office is a combination of window units and split units that have served pretty well. I think if we were to complete the space, which is what the 55,500 would be for, would certainly bring that comfort. The only benefit we do have of the Neary School is it's not multi-floored, so it is a single floor building, which does benefit us in those shoulder months, as Greg was aware. It doesn't get as hot as Woodward or as Trottier, but still it would, improve the comfort. And we do not have any of the potential mold conditions like we did at Finn. We've been able to avoid that, thankfully. So that number is, just to get it done and to do some of the electrical work that would be needed for the upgrade. So that's what the 55.5 is for.
I mean, I can add that I think I have a difficult time recommending any investment into Neary due to the Neary Building Committee and potential for some type of building project. So this truly is would be a short-term investment for short-term comfort for short-term periods of time, the shoulder months, the opening up of school and, the end of the school year. I think Neary educators and students would appreciate it, having it for the 2 years or 3 years potentially while the building is in use. But again, I have a hard time really making recommendations around investing in that building if there's a larger plan in place to really modernize it and update it.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So if we were to go forward with this for Neary, and then we do a study, and it's let's just call it $3 million for the other schools, and it's just cost prohibitive. Could we move these units to another school, or are they specific sizes for the windows that Neary has?
They are pretty adaptable. What would need to be retrofitted is the fitting for the window itself. So all the windows are a different size. The units themselves would be transferable.
Okay, great, thanks.
And they are now, like where we have a need. Sometimes we make shifts now, Jeff, based on the circumstances.
So part of the cost of installing these window units, a large part of the cost is retrofitting the windows.
Right.
So it's not necessarily the actual AC units, it's the work needed to fit the units into the windows.
Mm-hmm.
Jason, what
Yeah.
would be the timeline on discontinuing Neary at the current pace we're at, if that happened?
We're looking at a somewhere early 2025 town meeting. So early means before June. And we're probably closer to June, not January in that.
Yeah, no, yes.
So and then
I was thinking
at least 2 years from there.
So it'd be probably about 27 or 28. And these wouldn't be able to be put in for at least a year or until next year?
No, if we vote this, they could be in this fall. Sorry, this spring, like before this current school year's out, if we allocated free cash.
So that would give us a lifespan of about 4 years in the building? Or about the lifespan?
You'd probably get your money's worth because those would probably be needing replacement by the time you open a new building.
So they'd be burning out pretty much about the time that the building goes out of circulation. So this would actually get pretty much full life use out of them.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the question to be asked is how much discomfort the students and teachers are having now. I wish my kid was here now to tell me because she just went through there. But
I mean, I hesitate. I'm kind of with Greg on. I hesitate to put a single dollar candidly into this, but at the same time, we are going to be housing students for 2 to 3 years, and then you just look at the topography of where Woodward is. Full disclosure, I have 2 more kids going through Woodward. At the top of the hill, and Neary's at the bottom of a hill. And I know Jeff experiences at Finn pickup today too. That was basically a swimming pool in the parking lot. Right. So you think about the issue we had at Finn. Could it rear its head at Neary in the next 3 years? Possibly. Could it rear it at Woodward? It's just, again, unlikely. So I would like to recommend we have a placeholder on this, not take a motion, but allow Greg some time to go back to the school committee inform them of the 2 definitive votes we took. And maybe it's your subcommittee, Greg, that it's up to you where you go with this, but just see how hard they want to push her. Because ultimately, we would want a school committee member or you as superintendent kind of pounding the table for this on town meeting floor if there was dissent.
Hopefully it's a warm day.
Yes. Does anyone oppose to that? Okay. Any other questions for anyone from the school administration tonight? All right. Thank you all. I know you've had a busy day and it continues in the morning, but appreciate the time tonight. And I guess let's stay in touch as we get closer to town meeting.
Thank you all.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.
All right. So let's go to the next item. The last meeting I brought up the concept of the phone system that had been submitted by Jay Montijo in conjunction with the MTC for this year. The full form in submission is in the folder. I don't know if people had a chance to look at it or had any thoughts of A, do they have questions for him, or B, are they ready for a vote? But that's really the item that's up for discussion at this point.
I've got a question, Jason.
Go ahead.
I had a question on the annual maintenance cost. It seemed very high. I don't have context for what it currently is, but it looks like it's almost more than the actual implementation. $25,000 to put the system in place, $38,000 to maintain it each year. Wasn't sure if that was factual or if that's the reality of the new system. That would be my question.
I think you need to know what the current one costs to operate too, right? So do you want, I would suggest you just put that in an email to Jay.
Sure.
Copy Mark, and we can just carry it to our next meeting.
Sure.
Are there any other questions for Jay on that? I think it's a good question.
Thanks.
Might be an easy answer or not so easy. We'll see.
Okay, no problem.
All right. The next, I don't think we're ready for a motion on this tonight, but the town clerk sent an email to me last week and gave me a call about a record retention article that he's looking for. Originally, he was planning it in his budget. Originally, he was thinking about some CPC. I told him it sounded like a capital article, a one-time expense to accomplish a project. I would fully admit I thought there was some gray area on whether it truly falls within the capital policy, but I told him there's nothing that could be lost from the transparency that would come into running it through our normal capital process. I left him with some homework though, because he kept giving me different numbers, and he was apparently there's some stuff that's already been handled through grants. So I asked him to take a step back and give us the total cost of what it's going to cost to scan everything that he feels like needs to be documented, preserved, etc. And then it seemed like he had a very good handle on potential funding sources for each. Put it in front of us, full well knowing and giving the committee a heads up that there is a portion of this that's going to have to come from the general fund if the taxpayers are supportive, because there's no other avenue for certain pieces of this. So I consider this more heads up, because these things just keep coming in obviously we need to cut it off at some point to have a holistic view on capital. But I talked to Jim on Friday, and I would expect something in the coming days that we could easily react to with the MIS article at our next meeting. Any questions on that? Okay. Moving to number 7. We'll use about the next 20 or so minutes to take some formal motions on what I think we're ready to take motions on, and provide a path forward on the ones we're not, or that there's split views on. There are 2 things in the folder related to this. One is FY25 capital as of 12/18/23. So Brian basically took everything we've been doing and put it into the format that he would need to have it in to get it into the warrant. And then I also, for purposes of DPW, which I'm going to come to at the end for obvious reasons, Bill has given me his latest list of prioritization, which I know helped a lot of folks when we recently discussed DPW. So my intent here is to get through what we can. And I'm going to start with the stuff I already have done straw polls on, and then we'll come back to the bigger things. I want to make sure it's not lost on folks, though, what I said earlier in the meeting when Greg and team were here. There's about $3 million of scheduled appropriation. If we were to approve everything this year, we usually approve just over one. Now, we've been sounding the red flag for many years that there were years coming where the appropriation had to go up. So I'm not advocating we end up anywhere near $1 million, but if Brian just takes our number and throws it into what the departments have submitted for operations, it not only causes an uncomfortable tax increase that I think is more than anyone would ever support at town meeting, but it also impacts our levy, which we haven't spent a lot of time at all talking about. And we've had so much excess capacity there for as long as I can remember, Mark, and I think probably through most of your tenure, even as town administrator, it's gone, right? If we come anywhere close to this number, in combination with some of the operational items. And you got to remember, we're in a year where our debt is at the lowest level it's been in many years. We are coming off a special litigation related to a capital item in terms of our annual payments to Northborough have ceased related to Algonquin. That was a legal settlement related to the original construction. So there's a lot of good factors in here, and we're still facing this uphill battle. So obviously, the select board and advisory that follow on this will certainly have to make tough decisions as well with a bigger lens. But I do think we're in a position as capital that we're going to have to probably, take some steps back before taking a few steps forward. So I'm going to go through the ones that we've already discussed and sort of taking straw polls on, and then we can go back from there. So at the last meeting, we talked about the concept of 2 police cruisers at a cost of $75,000 each. And here you'll see Brian has clearly articulated that it would come out of free cash, which again goes to Chief Newell's concern that when he was in front of us about the timing of delivery, et cetera. So he would have the ability to go bolster his fleet right after town meeting if this was approved. So are there any other questions or comments before I move this one? This is row 23. Any questions? All right, I'm going to move that we support the police capital budget for this year, which is 2 cruisers, $75,000 each for a total of $150,000 with free cash as the recommended funding source. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, it's been seconded. Roll call. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Jeff?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. So that is unanimous. Let's go to the South Union School. We had and the facilities maintenance article. So I don't think anyone had any questions on facilities maintenance article based on the notes from last meeting. And then South Union School, I think we agreed to have some sort of asterisk next to it that, this is basically contingent upon the select board, not moving forward with any sort of disposition plans at this town meeting. That align with everyone's views? Okay, so I'm going to move that we support the facilities capital budget, which consists of $100,000 for the capital maintenance fund and $50,000 for the South Union School, with the understanding that the South Union School appropriation would only be if the select board do not pursue disposition of that parcel in the next fiscal year.
Second.
Second of that. Any further discussion? All right, roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I am I as well. So that is a 4-0 unanimous vote. Let's go to library next. Is everyone ready to vote on the library feasibility that we talked about at the last meeting?
That was
Okay,
$150,000, correct?
that's correct. All right, then I'm going to move that we support the library building engineering of $150,000.
Second.
For purposes of discussion, I do plan to vote in favor of this, but I would like to get an answer to my question about what they're going to do if we don't get the state grant and how they're going to word this article. It's not going to change my vote. I'm in favor of it either way. But I do think we need to be transparent with this is the likely site of any library project, and we need to understand when they would undertake something if we're unsuccessful with our grant efforts. I think timing is going to be very important here from a construction process perspective. Any questions, comments, discussion?
Nope.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Jeff,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
and I am I as well. So that is unanimous. All right, let's go on to fire. Did we talk about the PPE last week or no? I think all right. So something new has come to Mark, Brian, and my attention via Chief Achilles. As you remember, we had annually funded a PPE article. Some of it has been through the ambulance fund. Some of it has been actually funded through donations from various pilot payments. And that fund, if you remember when Chief Achilles was with us, he said he didn't need anything for this year. Well, there's just north of $400 left in that fund as of today. So if we needed a new set of turnout gear, which costs well over $5,000 per set, we actually don't have any money to do it unless the chief was able to find some way through his operational budget. So he submitted a request to add 20,000 back into the capital plan for PPE for next year, which would get you approximately 4 sets of gear. His PPE coordinator, I pushed pretty hard on this for obvious reasons, given the timing and kind of the prior statement. His PPE coordinator did send an email saying they do have at least 3 firefighters that are going to need gear next year just due to the age of the gear. By my count, we're going to have a new chief. So that would be a 4th set of gear that would be needed, regardless of whether it's an internal or an external candidate. It's just different gear. So we're stuck to an extent because I'm not thrilled with the timing of it. But I also don't know how you can leave the fire department in a situation where they have no mechanism to fund gear that basically protects someone that's running into a burning building. So let's start questions, comments on that, and then we'll go to the other items we've talked pretty extensively about.
Jason, really quickly, do we have any open recs out there as well for hires?
I don't know if Mark knows off his head, but
Mark, maybe.
it's not uncommon for people to leave in the middle of the year. So even if there is nothing open, there's no new positions, but people do leave, and they have had some people leave this year.
And we just have a new hire now too.
Where I'm getting at is that 20,000 enough? If we've got 4,000 to fund, we've got 4 people that need it, you possibly for turnover, you're going to be stuck in the same position we're at now without funding.
I tend to agree, but that's also something, depending on where pilot goes, right? This is something that St. Mark's has been very generous with, and I believe Fay in certain years too when they weren't funding other items. So it is something you can explore there. I also balance some of my comments about known, turnover gear, like turnout gear, they still can fund it through their operational budget, but it would probably come at the sacrifice of something else. It's not ideal. We want it in the capital budgets where it should be, but an emergency situation like someone's gear gets destroyed tomorrow, we're going to find a way to make it work, sort of thing. But those should be one-off. So I share your concern, Jeff, but I actually sent the chief pretty much that same email today of I probably would have advocated for more if the timing wasn't where we were at.
Yep.
Thoughts on the PPE? Anyone opposed to it? Okay, so bear with me for a second. So I'm gonna move that we support the fire PPE of 20,000. The is that the only thing coming out of the general fund for fire? The ambulance power stretcher of 65,500. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss anything else here, but I don't think I did.
Wasn't there a defibrillator too?
That's coming out of the ambulance fund.
Okay.
So those are the two for general fund right now. The defibrillator for 100,000 out of the ambulance fund, which is actually for 2 defibrillators, as non-bonding articles for the fire department for FY25. Their second. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. I do think, and Brian's going to continue to run it to the extent we can get some of those from general fund to ambulance fund, we will. Those first two, but it's not possible at this point, given some of the articles we bonded out of there in the past couple of years. All right, so now we're going to go down a little bit into the bonding articles for this year for fire. So we had the ambulance and we had the tower demo truck. Does anyone want me to split the motion on this? All right, so
do we have a cost on that demo truck? Are we going with the 1 point?
We're going to give up to 1.3, but it would be, obviously this is going to be challenging because you're going to have a new chief that comes in as well. You can always rescind it if the new chief says, yeah, that's not what I want to do. But the goal was to create the flexibility because you don't know exactly what it's going to cost. It could be, remember, as low as 1.1 or a million, depending on exactly what becomes available. And you also have to remember there is a trade-in value to the existing truck, which would be to be determined, but it's not going to be $5,000 either. So there would be sort of a down payment you have, so to say, against this. This is just the gross cost of what we think the maximum is if someone actually deals with this in the next fiscal year.
And then we probably won't have to pay for it. Well, unless they find a good demo, we may have to wait 2 years for it anyway.
You wait like a year. You wouldn't wait. You'd wait no more than a year from the time the dealer took delivery of it and is showing it to other towns.
If it were a demo, but if we had to order one,
we're not going to. This is specific. The language is it's to be very clear. The motion will be on a demo truck, not a custom build.
Okay.
Because I believe the chief was very clear with us. We're not going to be able to get a custom build today for that amount, but he thought this was the most practical way forward for the department, obviously based on the robust conversation we had.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. So I am going to move that capital support the fire tower demo truck for 1.3 million and the ambulance replacement of 551,000 with a combination funding source of general and/or ambulance fund, subject to the availability of the ambulance fund, with the understanding that the town treasurer plans to bond both items. there's a second.
Second.
And for purposes of discussion, I did air the concerns I raised in the last meeting around implementation of both of these. And the chief has acknowledged it and is working on a plan with his department so that an ambulance, as an example, is ready to be ordered at the end of March. And there's not like a delay due to transition or implementation. So he will stay in touch with us. But, I told him that's the easiest way to shave off of some of that 551, but I'm not planning to sit here and guess at what amount lower it should be. Let's give them the ability to go build it with the understanding that they're actually going to have it built before town meeting.
And I know we're running out of time here, but so we can bond through the ambulance fund here, okay.
Basically all the recent pumpers, the tender, the radios from last year, like that's what's actually creating pressure on it, is we're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for assets we purchased a couple of years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
In theory, we could also try and solicit pilot funds to help fund that, couldn't we?
Exactly. And that was done with the last tower. So Tony's hopefully taking very good notes of the number of times pilot has come up tonight. Okay, so the motion has been seconded. We discussed. Let's do a roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I am aye as well. All right. So Bill kind of did provide a cost benefit analysis, but it was a couple of hours ago. So I purposely did not forward it to the committee because I didn't want anyone that had capacity to read it before then or not. I will forward it along on some of the items that people had asked questions about, and we will make some decisions at the next meeting. But I did want to update you in our final couple of minutes of some discussions I had with Mark and Bill in the meantime to try to corral their number, right? And try to find a plausible way forward without hampering the operations. Unfortunately, especially today, didn't help our cause based on the number of things that just didn't seem to be working today with the severe weather out there. But I think, subject to kind of further discussion by the committee, we're going to explore expanding the road maintenance number from 400 to a slightly larger number for next year, but broaden the language to deal with potential culverts, but really encourage Bill to go out and seek grants in other earmarks through the state legislature, but realizing that he may have some engineering or some small things he needs to do. So what that would do is it would knock off like the larger projects, but still give him a path forward to accomplish them with Southborough taxpayers not funding kind of the total amount. So I don't know exactly what that number would be, but that is like one area we're exploring to try to ease that pain. And then I think the rest is going to be just a prioritization of where the committee thinks we should be spending our money. And I think what I'll have ready for our next meeting is a summary of what we've already approved, right? What the impact there, and hopefully Brian can join us to just see where the town budgets are coming out, right? Because again, we have no operational authority, but it's important for us to understand what is going on the operations side because it does yield our ability to advance certain capital projects. So I think Bill has a little more homework to do for us to make recommendations, and I don't think it makes sense to cherry pick a few of them tonight. I will leave you with the final comment of the trash trailer. One of them is out of service magically this morning with, basically not drivable at this point. So it is what it is at this point. It's a 1995 asset. I'd say the town got its money's worth and all of that. But like I said, and I think Willow Street is currently closed, which is one of the culvert streets. So, I think there are certainly items on here that have tremendous merit but we don't have the money to afford all of it, and we're gonna have to make some decisions. So with that being said, we're heading into the holidays, and we have to present to advisory and select board on January 6th. So unless someone has a strong desire to meet next week after Christmas, but before New Year's, I would like to recommend that we meet on the 2nd or the 3rd with a purpose of finalizing DPW and finalizing our presentation. I don't know if, and it could be the 4th too, but it can be no later than the 4th because there'll likely be some changes or discussion that night. So I guess my final action item tonight would be to understand what nights work, and if you need to come back to me, we can schedule it over the next couple of days. Any of those not work for anyone?
Wednesday night is tough unless we start later for me, and Thursday as well, unless we start late.
Okay. Mark, do you have select board on the 2nd? Okay. And Brian?
I'm sorry, I'm not opposed to next week either, but I'll leave it to the rest of the committee on that.
Joe, Tony?
I'm flexible. The Tuesday the 2nd, I could make it work if I need to. Either way, I can do next week after, whatever.
What about the 26th or 27th? But can we do it during the day or
The 26th at night is fine.
what about during the day?
Depends on what time. What time works for
Okay.
everyone.
Tony, any thoughts from you?
No, I can work around that on the 26th. The 27th, it's a little more complicated for me, so.
Okay. Joe, you were flexible on the 26th?
Yeah, I can be flexible, I think.
Anytime better than another?
I can be flexible, I think.
Jeff?
I just can't do mid-afternoon for sure. I cannot do that. Okay.
Is 8:30 or 9 too early for anyone on
Nope.
AM, that is?
9 would be okay.
Okay. All right. Let's pencil in 9 a.m. on the 26th. And if for some reason people's availability change, please let me know like ASAP. And then we'll default back to the week of the 2nd.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yep.
Excellent.
All right. Is there any public comment? All right. Seeing none. Any other business? All right. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It's been seconded. Roll call vote. Joe?
Aye.
Jeff?
Bye.
Tony?
Aye.
And I am I as well. Thank you, everyone. Have
Thank
a good
you.
holiday.
You too.
Thanks, Jason.
As